Good evening to everyone. It is always a pleasure to share experiences, and they always say you cannot have youth and experience, and you can't have experience with youth. So I think that I'm past the youth with experience, so I think I have enough age on me to pass a little bit of that. So with that started, I'd like to share with you tonight on a subject matter that how to manage in the business industry with guts. And in starting off with that, I'd like to cover a couple of areas. First, 3 or 4 topics, about 6 topics we'll go through, is don't let nobody turn you around. That's one of the first things we'll talk about. It's a reflection, and I'll reflect on that. And then we'll discuss success by definition of whom. Who defines your success? That's a personal dream and a desire. We'll go through how to see the rainbow, living the dream, the evolution of IMRI. I'll share some of my stories with my company that hopefully will influence you in some ways in some of the things that you would do. I had a video I wanted to show you about what's going on in the world today with the business industry that I'm living in today, which is in the cyber warfare, but we weren't able to kind of pull that off tonight, but you'll see it again. I'll give you the link to it. It's out on YouTube. And then the last one is the actual substance of this presentation tonight, is managing my business and managing your life or your career with guts. With that being said, I want to reflect back onto in 1969. I want to go way back. Maybe some of you weren't even born then. But back in 1969, I graduated from high school, and it was a very troubling time in our nation. The civil rights movement was at its peak, and it was like enough was enough. I was raised in Memphis, Tennessee. That was in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated in my city. The young people were just in disarray, and then I was raised in a very loving home, a very Christian home, and my family taught us to love everybody. So there was not a lot of discrimination or any of that in my spirit. But during that particular time, there was a lot of segregation and discrimination, which was impacting my life. And so even in the midst of all of that turmoil, I continued to dream. And I had dreams. And it reminds me of one of the statements that Harriet Tubman said. She said that every great dream begins with a dreamer. So I was still dreaming. And then she went on to say, always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. So rather than me take all of that turmoil inside of me to be radical in my spirit and my Christian belief says, make a change and do something different. So I want to reflect back on a story that can impact a dreamer. How many of you had dreams? Got dreams that you live in or had them at some point? We all had them. And so I want to reflect back to that particular time in 1969 and 1970 where I was dreaming. And so after graduating from high school, I decided to go to a local 2-year college, which was education in computer science in 1970 in Memphis, Tennessee, which was the first college that was set aside for technology. In the city of Memphis. And when I selected computer science as my major, and I was also the first African American to integrate this college. So when I selected it as my major, my academic college advisor told me that my math scores from the SAT and ACT were below standards, and that I would have to choose another major because it would be too hard for me and I would fail in the class. So I refused to accept that. I just could not accept it. And although I was afraid and not sure what these classes was all about, I challenged the academic system. And I challenged my college advisor, and I forced the system to allow me to enroll in the classes and in the major. Now, I had to study hard. I had to miss a few parties. And yes, it was difficult, very difficult, but I stuck with it. And because I believed that I could, there's something about determination and willpower. But my sacrifices and my commitment was not to let nobody turn me around from my dreams. And as a result of that, I completed the program with an A average. Now, my academic college advisor planted a seed of discouragement that I refused to accept and cultivate. When I reflect back to the discouraging advice that I got and that I received in 1970, I want to say today, excuse me? You say what? I don't think she ever read Philippians 4:13 that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I don't think she ever read that. But so I want to go back and reflect on that chronological process because I think it'll help us understand, and you get my point about don't let nobody turn you around. So 1970 to 1973, I completed the 2-year course at State Tech Institute with a 3.8 GPA. 1975 through 1977, I joined the Navy. Oh, wow. Well, I was training in cryptology. I think most of you, if you want to understand cryptology, is the intersects between the disciplines of mathematics, computer science, and electrical engineering. And applications of cryptology is in banking and AT technology, computer security, encryption, and today's cybersecurity. In 1978 through 1980, I got my bachelor's degree from Cal Poly, which you heard, 3.5 GPA. Majored in what they said I would fail in, computer information systems, which we know what that was all about. And then in 1980 to 83, I was hired as a computer programmer by ARCO, which is now British Petroleum, and I did manufacturing refinery systems, which was in yield accounting, and it was in Fortran, and then in scientific programming. In 1984, I completed my master's and finished that. In 1983 through 1986, I was hired by IBM as a computer programmer analyst, and I was the first employee hired in an IBM Global Service Division, which they just started in 1984. 83. In 1986 and 1987, I was hired as a director of quality assurance for the Beacons Transportation, which was tariffs and rates. 1987 through 1989, I was hired as a director of information systems administration and quality assurance for QVC, it was CBN and now QVC. In 1989 to 1982, I was hired as first vice president of Columbia Savings and Loan, which was the FDIC banking institution, again, financial and applications. And in 1992, I started IMRI in Karen. And today, as the president of IMRI, we're a $24 million corporation specializing today in cybersecurity technology and engineering. We have been successfully completed over $150 million in contract awards for supporting the Executive Office of the President of the United States, the Office of the Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon, the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, the United States Cyber Command, the Department of Homeland Security, National Security Agency, Disneyland, Pacific Gas and Transmission, Southern California, so just to name a few. Just to name a few. So among these numerous awards that were received Wells Fargo Living History Award and 2013, 14, and 15 Inc. magazine recognized us as one of the fastest growing small businesses in the United States. Orange County Business Journal recognized us as Women Who Mean Business. We've been published in the New York Times, the LA Times, and on. In the Small Business Administration, we received the award 2 times for being the Small Business of the Year. And my most favorite, 2014, honored by the White House Champion of Change, Women Veteran Leader Award by President Obama. So please understand me for a moment. I didn't go through that to boast. That wasn't boasting. That wasn't bragging. The purpose of me to walk through that was to make sure you clearly understand, don't let nobody turn you around. Nobody can define your success better than you can. And so as we go through tonight, the most important advice I can give is that who defines your success? 45 years ago, I was told I would not be successful. Had I cultivated that negativity or whatever that was to destroy my dream, I would have been dreamless. So for those of us who dream to be, there are some things we're going to learn tonight in my conversation with you, is to talk a little bit about how do we really get there. You know, I believe, and this is my favorite quote about success, because success is personal. It is defined by your dream, achieved by your desire, and measured by both. I'm going to say that again. Success is personal. It's defined by the dream. It's achieved by your desire, and is measured by both. So what do I mean by that? It's a simple thing. Success is self-defined measurement of the outcome of an action. That's personal. Everybody got that? That's personal. Self-defined. Who can dream your dream? How many people know your dream? The only reason they know your dream is that you told them about your dream, because they are out there. So it's personal. So in other words, to assess success, the person who is performing the action must define and agree with a set of measurements for evaluating the outcome. Well, I believe that, and that's the dream. So get me on that. That's the dream. Okay? Well, we don't need that for right now because I'm talking. Okay. So, I believe that everybody desires success in one form or another. Some people just daydream about it, and others do something about it to achieve it. And when you do that, that happens to be your desire that make you do that. So, but what I want to conclude with is that when I define success for me, that does not mean it's the same success for you. And that what you define as success and what I define as success are different. And how we measure our success is going to be different. But our society tries to tell us, to dictate to us how success is supposed to be defined. Many of us are caught up into some of the definitions that society gives us to define our successes. In some cases, when we do that and live by what society defines as a mechanism for measurement of success, it can bring about anxiety, it can bring about depression, it can bring about frustration, because we are allowing something else and someone else or to dictate to us how to define a success for us as an individual. So, in other words, society tells us that we measure success by how much money we make, how big our house is, who do we own, what do we own, who do you know, what kind of car you drive, what kind of clothes you wear, how many diamonds you wear. You know, some of those measurements are measurements that are defined. Now, I'm not knocking on money. Please don't get me wrong there, because the Bible talks about that, and we'll get into that. I'm not knocking on money, but what I am saying is that we have to be careful not to allow our dreams of success to be solely centered around money and materialistic possessions. So with that, my life had to change a little bit to get my mind straight on where are the goals? What are the goals? I love this little quote. This is Dolly Parton. It says, if you want to see the rainbow, and everybody know what the rainbow is after the rain, and after that God had promised us that he would not destroy earth again by water. So this beautiful happens after a beautiful rain, and sometimes the rainbows are prettier than others. And that's because there was some serious rain that went on. And so if you want to see the rainbow, you got to put up with a little rain. So the issue is that when we decide that we want to go after our dream, we have to make some effort to do so. And sometimes it means making some sacrifices that many of us may not necessarily understand at that moment in time what that sacrifice is. So with that being said, tonight we're going to have I'm going to give you 3 points. I feel like I'm preaching a sermon. 3 points. You can probably tell I'm a preacher. Okay. I'm an ordained minister of the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Irvine, California at Christ Our Redeemer. 3 points. Okay. And so lesson 1, never give up. So if you want to see the rainbow, you can't give up. And the translation of that is patience, persistence, patience, persistence. Shall I say it again? Patience and persistence. Over and over again. You never give up on the dream. You can revise the dream. You can change the measurements. You can revamp the plan. But you don't give up on the dream. How many of us are either currently living our dream? How many living your dream? Okay, good. How many of you are in the process of rethinking, revamping, and maybe making another attempt at it to achieve it? Been there. Understand that. See, Steve Jobs, it's interesting, success arose from his failures. Okay? After being asked to step down from Apple, Steve Jobs lavishly started another company called NextXT. And after that, after several unsuccessful inventions, not 2 years, we're talking about almost 10 years he was there before he went back and returned to Apple. And after he returned to Apple, he finally bloomed, you know? He invented the iMac, and the story goes on, right? How many got Apple sitting out there? Okay, all right, see what I'm saying? And so the nation is, so there is something about that old saying that if at first you don't succeed, try again. So that's about the dreaming. So if the dream ain't going right, you just keep on dreaming and keep on working it and make it and go. So I remember, and I'll go back in 1996. I'm really aging myself because this article did, okay? So in 1986, Jan Norman, reporter of Orange County Register, ran an article on me. And back then, this is a quote. I want you to see this quote. Daniel, 45, wants to retire at 50. I had a dream. Okay, I'm still working. Okay, so she has a plan that calls for information management resources, my company I still have now, right, to grow to 40 to 50 million within 5 years. Okay, and either go public or be acquired by another company. Now, what year we? Obviously, I missed that goal. But does that mean I wasn't successful? See, so that's where I'm getting to. I'm going to get into defining success. That quote was after I'd been in business for 4 years. I'm an entrepreneur now for 23 years. There is one heartfelt lesson that I have learned. No matter what goals I set for myself, there are 4 inequalities and powers which are required when I establish my measurements. Now, I was a little off. Right? How many years off have I been? Okay, a lot of years off. But what I've learned now, when I told you about your K-Name Youth and experience in youth, now I'm going to talk to you from the experience side. Is that the first thing was that I needed to at first really decide exactly what I really wanted to achieve. That achievement was society dictated, because guess what it was? It was strictly about money. It didn't have all of the other list of the things that was necessary. That was a goal set on financial. Now, mind you, it's nothing wrong with financial goals. I set them every year. My staff have to deal with it. My COO is sitting there. She knows the how she gets, how I get after them about goals and meeting them and reaching them. But the second thing I learned was a strong desire. But when you set the measurement, you got to set a measurement by which you desire. Because if you don't desire it strong enough, it's not going to happen. It just won't be achieved. So when you desire it, when you set the goal and you know what the goal is, now you're dealing with your desire to get there. Then the next one is persistence. I said that, persistence. That means that no can't mean no. I get so many no's. I get so many no's. I get more no's than I get yes. But guess what? The no doesn't mean no, because that no means somebody else will say yes. That means I got to go knock on another door. Or that no means that I have to go find somebody else to help me figure out how to get there. That no means that I got to go network a little bit more outside to find somebody else to help me move through that obstacle. No's don't always have to mean no. And so we take no sometimes to be literal. No, oh, I can't go do it. I wouldn't be successful today because she told me no. When? 1970. She said, no, you can't do it. I could have turned around and walked out the door. Okay. So then the fourth thing we have is self-discipline. Okay. So with self-discipline, that's the fourth thing that we have. And that means know when to rest, take care of your mental and physical and spiritual health, Learn to plan, stay focused, and not be distracted by assignments and requests that redirect your mission and take you away from your valuable asset, which is your time. Because time is your valuable asset. And people have a tendency to pull on that. So you have to make sure you keep that focus and align it with all the things that align with it. So in my book, which I have books for I have 20 books. The first 20 people to come get them, they're free, they're yours. In my book on $1 Million Conversation, chapter 10 is where I am in. It says, don't let nobody turn you around. I share the aggressive measurements that I had made for myself, as I mentioned in the article, the Register article, about achieving a whole bunch of money. But the bottom line is that 23 years later, IMRI just did $150 million in total for the whole year. Now, I call that successful. I went back and revamped my measurement, revamped my goal, and said, okay, well, I didn't have to make $150 million in the first 5 years, but we've done $150 million in the whole 23 years. Is that not a success record? So we have to be able to revamp our thinking, not let anything make you feel, oh, I got to keep going for. No, I don't have to. Because success is by way I redefined it in my own effort. So we're in 19 states. We got to open our first international assignment. Yes, measurements that are not necessarily based upon financials. So we have to find other ways to do that. And again, today we're 150 employees, $25 million in revenue. Great. But that is not the only measurement. So what I'm saying is that it wasn't always this good. So I have to tell you, now that sounds good today, but if I take off my shirt, I got a one from 2004, I got one from 2007, and a few of them back in there in the back. So let's talk about a few things that didn't go right. So in 2004 and 2005, the company came very close to closing its doors. It did. And during the year of 2000 crisis, IMRI made its national mark and grew substantially from 3 million to 10 million. And, co-authored a book, and people knew about us, and everything went well. So at that time, we decided to move into software development. And so when we moved into software development in 2004, it was nice. I invested $600,000 and had this new software that was coming out. As soon as I arranged a contract with Dell, and we had joined in as partners, and as soon as I was ready to release the product, Microsoft released the product, a similar product, for free. For free. Okay? And they announced it after. So I read the press release and the Microsoft announcement, and I was waiting, and guess what? I received a call from who? Dale. Dale said, oh, no. Oh, no, we can't do this. $600,000 later, down. So lesson number 2. Lesson number 2. Oh, not yet. I can't show the video. Lesson number 2. Never be afraid. Don't get scared. Right then, of course, $600,000. Don't contract anymore. Microsoft coming out with the product. I'm already broke. Okay, and now I don't have any contract to go forward. So there's no guarantee. But I said, okay, I can't get scared, right? Can't get scared. So after Dale called, what really happened then? Let's talk about what happened. So the first thing I say to you is that we don't want to be afraid. God did not design us with a fear, okay? Because at the moment in time, he says that I am your shepherd, you shall not want. So now where you go for your sources. So you go back and you start thinking about this thing. So the first thing I said, the second part of what I began to look at to say, okay, how do I fix this? Because when you first begin to see your problem, it looks like it's gigantic, like the giants, right? It's a big giant problem. And it was a giant problem because I didn't have no more money. Okay, no more money to do anything. So after the situation, I'm going to share with you, after the disaster, it was clear. I had layoffs. I had cash flow issues. I had accounts payable issues. And it was really clear at that point who your real friends were, too. That's when you know who your friends are. That some talk about you, but they aren't there to encourage you. Okay? And then and the bankers, oh my goodness. They used to come smiling and knocking at the door, loving me. All of a sudden, the bankers was like, oh, You coming up here again? Okay. What do you need? Okay. I mean, different thing. And then the vendors who you're working through, trying to work through your problems. So it becomes a situation where it is difficult. But when you look at that situation, you have to say to yourself, it's an obstacle. It looks like giants, but I started this off as that all things are possible through Christ Jesus, who strengthens me. And I believe that. And I have testimonies for that. So right after that, we begin to look at our resources. What you have to first do is look at your resources, look at your networks, understand the people that are surrounding you, the ones that are left that mean good for you. Start getting information, gathering from different places, figuring out who else has been through a situation like that. Talk to them, go out, spend time with them, and then lay out a strategy and a plan. So what you do outside of that, guess what else I did a lot of? Hey, y'all got it. All right? A whole lot of praying went on. And as I began to pray, the Lord discerned my spirit and brought to me wisdom. Now here we go. Let's deal with this wisdom. I talked about revamping. The wisdom that came is that offshore had taken place. I was broke. Offshore meaning they were moving everything to India, and a lot of the technology was going away to other places. So what the Lord revealed to me is that you can't offshore in the Department of Defense. Okay? What did I tell you I was? A defense contractor, right? 97% of my business is in defense today. But I was not then. I was 100% commercial. Okay? So, to combat that, you have to be a U.S. citizen to do government work. So I better utilize the diversity statuses that I had, began to go after small business set-aside contracts, arranged myself in technology, all of the business stuff that I offered, went into the government, began to specialize in what they offered, had networking support, didn't know anything about government contracting, hired a few people to help me with that, and there we go again. So I've learned that success isn't always measured when something is spectacular. In rough times and bad times, it's important to manifest success in smaller measurements. You can't success in the big one that I had, the 45 years, 50 million, that's too big. So as you grow, you got to put it in smaller chunks of measurement so that you don't get depressed or distressed, and you're measuring it in smaller increments. So I learned that you can have failure, okay, but that doesn't mean you fail. Everybody agree with that? You can have failures, but it does not mean that you failed. So if a project or plan doesn't go the way that you expect it to, then you should capitalize on the situation and learn from it, and don't go around being the complainer that everything in the world is against you and blaming everybody and being defensive and being denial of the situation. So it goes into living the dream, which I can't show you the video today. Again, manifesting myself again, transforming into the technology. Technology is constantly evolving. So again, I have to transition again and revamp my dream. We are now in cybersecurity. We've been in cybersecurity for the last 6 years. As a small business, I mentioned the companies that we're doing cybersecurity for. So people ask me, how did you stay in business for 23 years? I'm glad y'all asked me. I'm glad you asked me. Here we go. Revamping my dream. Revamping my dream and achieving. The second, hiring the right people and being flexible so that the business did not ever drive me. I was the one that was driving the business. Okay? And then in the most of things is that of all of that is continuous evolution of technology. I had to understand how to move with that technology. So with globalization coming today and all those things out there, cybersecurity is big. I had a real big video I want to show you. But the most important thing that we understand today is there's 1.4 billion people on the internet. 21% of the population we know is out there. There's terrorists. There's unethical people. We created this world of internet. And when we put this superhighway in place, we put no police in it. None. All of a sudden, we got this big, gigantic, and everything bad and good is in that. And now we are trying to police it. And it is growing bigger and bigger and bigger every day. When I started this job in cybersecurity, there was 217,000 attacks against the government a day. There are over 1.5 million a day. 6 years. attacks. So, with technology being where it is, that was my reinvention. So today, reinvent the dream, moved into cybersecurity. That's where we are today. We have a cyber intelligence lab that's in Lisa Viejo. It's called Cytelix. We span across the nation. We've installed in all of the combatant commands. We support the Army. I mentioned all those places that we do today. So now, my last thing, so that I can take some questions. The last part of this was the final thing was I said the number 3. How do we manage a business in the business industry with guts? So here's my final of the 3-step program. Now we know the first one was don't give up. The second was don't get afraid. And the last one is you got to have guts. So what are guts? Guts is an acronym that I use to define the most important criteria for being successful. Guts, greed. You can't be greedy. You just have to know that there is enough opportunity and success out there for everyone. You don't have to take from someone else. You don't have to do wrong things. You just have to know that there are enough opportunities so that when you decide to move into your space, you do it and not be greedy. Okay? Unity. You cannot discriminate or segregate yourself. No woman or no man is an island, and you can't start your business or your career alone. There will always be someone you will need. Just listen to your ideas, or who will give you feedback and answer to a question that you might have. Your networks are extremely important. Many people believe that they just step out and go for it. I don't believe that. By the way, you can avoid many errors in doing whatever you're doing in your career if you present yourself with a mentor, spend some time with someone that has like values, though. Not everyone has your values. So they have to have like values. Okay? And then the third one is trustworthy. Say what you mean what you say, be dependable, be responsible, be honorable, be faithful, and do a good job. You will always have your reputation, so make it a good one. No matter what happens, your reputation is worth more than wrongdoings. Your reputation is more than dishonesty. Your reputation is much more than doing something wrong. You can always say no. The last one, spiritual. Believe in the Creator, believe in God. Step out on your faith and trust in the Almighty, because there are going to be some things you just cannot fix alone. I could not have fixed my bad day with Dale by myself. That was not possible. It is important to know that there will be trials, challenges, business decisions that you will have to make that no one in the human race can help you with. It's going to take divine intervention. Those are my lessons. I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
What questions do we have from the group?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever felt that you were being talked to by God through a dream, a vision, or something that happened in a sequence of events that you could have not ever envisioned or seen, or that they just couldn't happen?
Absolutely. I have one now that God has spoken to me to do, which I'm building a Christian retreat center and a restoration home place on the island of St. Lucia. It's called Refresh, and that was given to me some 12 years ago. And I said, God, I don't have enough money to do that. And I walked the land about 3 years ago. The land is still there. I plan to build it within the next couple of years. Still living that dream. Yes. The answer to that is absolutely. And has nothing to do with IMRI.
And how did you feel?
How do I feel?
How did you feel him
just various different things throughout. I would take walks, and it began and it started. I knew, and my husband even questioned me, say, "Are you sure the Lord told you that?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm positive." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm sure." And over the years, because it has stayed with me, and there is so much. A goodness that I feel when I talk about it. You can see my excitement about it when I spend. I'm sure that it came from the Lord, just by the passion that has been given to me and the desire to that has kept it for that many years. Okay.
You took that big hit, $200,000. I'm sure there's a lot of prayer involved.
Oh yeah.
How long did it take you to recoup from that loss?
That hit me in 2003. 2004, 5, 6, 7. It took me about 4 years to get back up on our feet. 4 long years. And I can remember my prayer saying, "Lord, you know what? I'm a little tired. Are you really gonna bring me out?" He said, "I didn't let you fall. I felt like I was on a bungee." And he would say, I said, "I keep seeing the bottom." He said, "But I never let you hit it." Okay. All right. That's my testimony on that one. But you never hit it. And every time I got into a tough situation, I'm going to give you a real quick one right quick, because this is a real testimony. My controller in my office, I had just hired. I would ask her. I hired her right after we had to lay everybody off. Everybody else kind of left me. And I hired this lady, and I said to her, we would always say, "Are you coming back tomorrow?" Because she was dealing with all of the financials. And one day as soon as I won a contract, the lady that I had won the contract with, she didn't have a particular vehicle. I had it. I put her in it. As soon as we won the contract, a $3 million contract, she called 2 days later and said, "I just sold my company." Well, she didn't really have much of a company to sell, but she said she sold it. They took the contract from me. Just took $3 million away after we worked for about 4 months, and they didn't pay me. So imagine, I had employees to pay. This is right after the disaster. And I remember she was not even a person who knew the Lord. And so we sat down one day, payroll was getting ready to run. And we did not have the money. And I sat in the office, and she said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "Just run the payroll." She said, "Well, I don't know about that, because the money in there." I said, "Let's just run the payroll." And she said, "Okay, well, I'm going to the mailbox." She walked downstairs. She went to the mailbox. And mind you, this company had taken from me, and they had not paid me for 3 months. She went to the mailbox, and she found a $75,000 check from the company that had taken the work and finally decided to pay me. He let my enemy save me that day. Okay. All right. He said, "I'll make your enemy your footstool." The enemy didn't know. They sent it by mail. They were supposed to do direct deposit. So that $75,000, I told her to run the payroll. She ran it. Then the next week, I got a call from Mississippi. I had never been down there marketing in Mississippi, in that part of Stennis, Mississippi. I get a call, and they said, "We want you to come down. We got a $3 million contract. We want to sole source to you." That's my testimony of how I got out of this. I never, ever marketed to them. I got on a plane, I went down there, and they gave me a $3 million contract that I had never marketed for. Okay? That's a testimony. I'd share that because that's a true story. So when they say, he said he never let me hit it, he didn't. I saw it several times. I was like, "Oh, I'm about to hit it. Up, my head, hold my hand." Yeah, anyway, okay. Any more questions? Yes.
What does continued education, or what does learning look like for you? I mean, you've done a lot of changes. How do you keep up?
I have a staff to keep up, but I also just read a lot on technology. I mean, I'm not planning to go back to school anymore. I may retire and teach some, but as far as keeping up with technology between the staff, I've been able to be a visionary to the company, so I can see where the technology is going because I've been working in technology for so long. So every time technology moves, in every evolution of technology, I have been in. And so from everything, from the mainframe all the way up to now. So as I watch the market, I can see where the market is going. Cyber is going to be here for the next 15 years or more. We just aren't going to get out of that. Don't see it. We're going to always be fighting. It's offense and defense. Think about football. Offense and defense. Everybody fight. You look at it. I'm looking at yours. You looking at mine. I'm trying to get yours. You're trying to get mine. That's the way it's going to be for a while. We can't police this thing right now.
What type of support did you have from your family?
My family, I have quite a few kids. I've had good support from, I'm the youngest of 5 children, and I'm the only one in California, so all of my family still live in Tennessee. But as far as my husband and family life, when I started this business, I had just remarried again, and we're still married 23 to 24 years now. Been there every time I'd ask him to quit his job to come in and help me. He quit and have to come in and help out. Then my daughter, who's an attorney, worked in New York, and I convinced her to take the chief. Well, I didn't convince her to take that job. She had earned that one. But I convinced her to come and join me in D.C. to run the federal division when things were not as quiet. She left, decided she wasn't going to be a partner, came in, ran that, brought her in now doing the chief operating officer. She did a wonderful job of selling in D.C. and brought her back to California. So family has been around. Friends that I met in California, my church has been fantastic. In the church, I got quite a few business from members within my church, so had good support system. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the transition from being an employee to owning your own company and going the route of being an entrepreneur?
Okay. I really wasn't trying to do that. To be honest, I was doing okay, moving up the career ladder. I just so happened to have been the CIO of Columbia Savings and Loan. And maybe you guys are a little too young for that, but that was when the junk bond market with Mike Milken and those guys, the Speaker family owned Columbia Savings and Loan, and they had brought me in. It was an investment group. So I ended up there. They were the ones who knew everything about junk bond and all of that. And so when the FDIC took over the bank, I realized that no one knew anything about junk bond but me and my IT staff. So we convinced them to shut down all the 22 failed savings and loans. We consolidated it into a system, moved it into Columbia Savings and Loan operations, and that's when I realized that, wow, this looks pretty good. So I went out and rewrote the system in a micro system and did some things, bought some new systems out and started my company, and then went back and convinced the government to give me the contract because I could run it cheaper than they could run it by keeping that bank open. So that's how I got into entrepreneurship, And then after that, Bank of America and Security Pacific merged, and I became a contractor to all of their shut down all of their branches. I knew how to shut down branches, right? So I could shut them down, bring them up. So I moved the company in that way in the commercial marketplace, mainly in banking. Okay? That was early 90s. Yeah, early 90s. Yes, sir.
A little bit more about church and how, you talked a little bit about it. Maybe you don't have much more to say, but I'm just curious about your church community, how they've supported you and walked alongside you.
The church community, when I say support, actually, I became a minister through those hard times. I've always taught. Let me just go back. I've always been a teacher. I never, ever thought I was going to be a preacher, and I really wasn't sure God was talking to me. I'm going to be honest. I was like, oh, not this one right here. And in the AME church, it requires a 5-year of theology. That they have a program themselves. You go 7 months out of a year, 5 years to be ordained, 3 years for the ordination of deacon, and then the second ordination is elder. There is no way I ever saw or thought I would be able to do 5 years, but I did that. But then in the church community, when I talk about their support, is that there was the encouragement through that cycle of ups and downs and through that period of my life that they were there. So in introductions or being in meeting people, I would talk and they would just say, oh, I know this person over here. Let me introduce you to this one. Let me introduce you to that one. So it was more of that, and my pastor was very active in the Los Angeles area, so I got many introductions that way. Through the city of LA, because I've had work with city of LA and city of Irvine. We are very big there, so work like that through the company.
God is just saying, without, amazing things coming, from heaven, and he's saying, stick with it. I mean, how
Because let me share it this way. It's be almost like a Bible study in a minute. Um, when you pray, God will answer your prayers. And so, as you're praying about that, if you are still confused about it, God hasn't answered it yet. But when you can get up from your prayer and there is peace from the time that you begin to arrive because you're praying for something, and as peace settles into your spirit, because He promises us peace. And so, when that peace arrives, that's when you know what God has spoken to you. Because when there's confusion going on, He's still dealing and dwelling with you. But when you are able to fit, your prayers become where there's peace in your spirit, then you now know God has answered your prayers. Okay? That's how you know. Yes.
What is your lowest point in your spiritual life, and how did you get out from it?
My lowest point in my spiritual life is when I lost my son, my 28-year-old son. 2 years, almost 3 years ago. That was one of the toughest point in my spiritual walk that I can ever imagine. And it was so tough that it put me in my bed for about 3 weeks. And it took me a while. It was very tough. But what I did realize is that I had to believe in what I believed in. If you believe that God is God and all things is right and He's perfect and He's righteous and everything He does is correct, then I had to be able to dwell within my spirit that belief that He makes no mistakes. And that if heaven is going to be like earth, then it can't be all old people there. Okay? So I had to get in my spirit that, but it was a very low point in time. And that's where we talk about church. My church family was very good at being there because I needed that time. It almost threw me to the point to question being a minister or a pastor. How could I save another soul when my son was there? It was very difficult for me. Yeah. So, but God brought me through it, and it is done for a reason. And I don't have to understand it because God is perfect and righteous in everything He does. I have to believe that and trust in that. Yeah. More? Okay.
You mentioned revamping the system and things will help change things around, help with the business. And you mentioned how you don't let the business drive you, you drive the business. Is there ever a time where you felt like the business was driving you?
Oh, yeah. Several times. One of the things that I teach and I believe in is that we always know when we're out of order. I said the Holy Spirit always go beep, beep. Okay, that's what my thing, because the Holy Spirit go beep, beep. There's a good and the bad that's always said. So when you know that you're out of order, see, when the business start driving you and start telling you what to do and you don't seek the source of the strengths by which you know and pray for things or do things in a way that because you become anxious. And the Bible said don't become anxious about anything. Bring everything to me through thanksgiving and through prayer. So when your body, when the business begin to drive you, you become anxious. Okay? That's how you recognize it. Anything, not just your business, your career, anything begin to drive you, you become anxious. And when that spirit gets to be anxious, you need to change it around. So at that point in time, you recognize that you are out of order. And when you get out of order, what do? You seek His word to strengthen you because you have no power to do it on your own. And it's through the power of the Lord that gives you the strength that you need in order to overcome those challenges that tend to pull you and direct you off His path. Okay? And so to stay on the path, if I'm driving in myself and driving the business is driving me, I'm out of order. And God can't discern me and keep me on the path that He is keeping me on. Does that make any sense? Okay. Okay. Yes.
It's good. Really appreciate you coming and telling the story.
Thank you.
We went to a graduation a couple of years here
right, let's thank Martha for coming in.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.